Hey, what's going on, guys? Back with another video, and this will be a little bit different video than I'm typically make. Most of you know I'm a huge DC fan, so I don't talk too much about movies and stuff like that on the channel, but this is something that I really wanted to discuss and talk about. So if you're a Marvel fan, you don't like the DC movies at all, this is probably something that you're not going to be too interested in, or although you may found some enjoyment out of it, or just pick up something that may, intrigue you to maybe watch this movie. So we're going to be talking about the new Zack Snyder's cut of Justice League. And we'll start with, I'll give you a little bit just a perspective of just my preference as far as DC movies, and like what I like, what I don't like, and just superhero movies in general. So the original Superman, like Christopher Reeve's Superman, I watched that growing up and really liked it, but I was never a huge Superman fan. When the Tim Burton Batmans came to theater, the Batman and Batman Returns, that's really what made me a DC fan. Okay, and I'm not the biggest comic book fan. I mean, but I'm a pretty good DC fan, I'd say. But those movies, for me, seeing those in the theater, those still to this day are my favorite Batman movies, are the Batman and Batman Returns. I love Michael Keaton, he's my favorite Batman, and those are just my favorite. They're nostalgic for me, I love them, and that's like what made me a DC fan. The Nolan ones, I really like those a lot too. The Nolan Batman films, I like those a lot. But they're really good films. But I prefer the Michael Keaton. That's just my personal preference, and that's probably just some nostalgia speaking. But that's what I like, what I grew up with, when I was a kid, when I went to the theater, and I remember going and seeing, and what just brought me into DC in general. Like I said, like Christopher Reeve, Superman. I mean, I like them, but I was never a huge fan of them. I mean, that's why I never saw the next Superman, was it Superman Returns or whatever it was, that came out in the early 2000s. I never even seen that to this date. Have never seen it. Then when Man of Steel came out, Man of Steel, I was not that huge of a Superman fan at the time, and Man of Steel, when I watched that's blew me away. And I get that a lot of like purists and like DC fans just hate that movie, but for me, maybe because I just was not a huge, Superman fan to begin with, I absolutely loved it. And to this date, that I believe is my favorite superhero movie of all time. So when that movie came out, like I said, I just was not even hyped for it. I just kind of I think I watched it on, I didn't even see it in the theater. I watched it on Blu-ray, watched it again and again and again, and I absolutely love it. Now the Marvel movies, like, to be fair, I mean, I've seen all the Marvel cinematic movies. I really enjoy all of them, but Marvel doesn't resonate with me near as much as DC does. So like, I'll watch them all, enjoy them, but after one watch, it's like I'm usually pretty good. I just don't have the desire to go back and watch them. I think I don't know that there's any that I've seen that I have not enjoyed. But that's kind of like where that is. And when they came up with the Batman versus Superman, the Dawn of Justice, that movie really concerned me a lot. Just because I felt that at that point in time, they were trying to catch up with Marvel. Marvel was like so far out in front, and I just felt that they were trying so hard to catch up with Marvel, to where I felt that the Batman versus Superman was really like 3 movies in one. And there was things, I know I followed that movie through, just pre-production and stuff like that, and I just was following it pretty hardcore. Was really pumped for that one because I was so, such a fan of the Man of Steel. And I saw that in the theater, and I didn't necessarily like it. I came out and I just had a lot of issues with it. I went to the theater to see it 2 or 3 times, and I mean, I liked it a little bit more each time, but I still was like, wow, there's so many problems with this thing. And in part because they crammed it they cut so much stuff out. So when finally the movie came out and I saw the director's cut, I really liked that version. So that version is probably 45 minutes to an hour long. There's a lot more stuff in there that they cut out. So it's like when you watch the theatrical version, it's like it doesn't, you're kind of lost. There's so much stuff that they just chopped out and is missing, and it's just it's not very good in my opinion. So the director's cut of that is pretty good. It's still, I think they probably still cut some stuff out, and I still think that should have been multiple movies. But that, I've watched that movie, the director's cut and the theatrical cut combined, I've probably seen that 10 plus times. And I have come to where I actually really like that movie. It's not my favorite, but I really like it. So when we come to the Justice League, the Wonder Woman is probably my second favorite superhero movie of all time. I love that movie. I don't know that I like it as much as Man of Steel, but it's really close. But that is a fantastic movie. I just love it to death. And when I went to go see Justice League, there was obviously the issues with Snyder, to where Snyder, I think, was trying to make a two-part Justice League, and he was trying to make part one really long. The studio, I believe, was trying to make him cut it down shorter than what it was. And then also at that same time, I think they were just trying to play catch up with Marvel, which just, the studio was putting up pressure on him, I think, to do stuff that he didn't want to do. And I'm not a huge Snyder fan. I don't follow the guy too much. I'm just talking about specifically about his work on the DC universe. And then he had the accident with his daughter, where I think it was a suicide or something like that. So they removed him from the project, and then they brought in Josh Whedon. And from what I understand, they reshot like 70 to 80% of the movie. I'm not sure the exact number, but obviously that ended up not being Zack Snyder's movie. It ended up being Josh Whedon, which he made the first two Avengers movies. So then he Marvelized it. And I knew this going into the movies, and I went to the theater and I watched it, and I thought it was okay. I didn't hate it. I mean, I guess maybe because I was kind of prepped for it, but you could definitely tell that it was a different spin on things. So it's probably my least favorite of all the DC Universe stuff, but I've watched them all probably 10 plus times, even Suicide Squad. I mean, I can admit that they're not all great movies. They all have their issues, but just the characters and stuff like that, I've watched all those movies, 10 times at least each. But moving on, now we had the fan base, and everyone wanted the Snyder Cut, and eventually it got worked around to where Warner Brothers and HBO partnered up and kind of got the funding to get the Snyder Cut. And that's kind of where we are now, to where they basically gave Zack Snyder the go-ahead to make a 4-hour movie. And this will be spoiler-free going from here on. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm just going to talk about like what kind of I anticipated going in, and kind of like what I got coming out of it. So, to be honest, I was not too like super pumped for this. I mean, I was looking forward to it, but I just didn't know like how much like they could change. And I was like, well, it's like, yeah, it's like, but they only, I mean, like, what are they gonna do? I mean, like, how much can they change the movie? How different could it be? And like, the Justice League was okay. The Snyder Cut, how much different can it be? So it dropped yesterday, which was March 18th, and like I said, it's 4 hours long. And I'm going to tell you that it's a completely different movie. It is mind-blowing to me how much different it is, and how much different of an experience it is than the original Justice League that was the theatrical version. So to start off with, like, it's a little bit strange because it's in a 4:3 aspect ratio, which I guess that was Snyder's vision to do that movie in. And I thought it was a little bit strange at first, but like 5 minutes in, I didn't even notice. I was like, why are they doing 4:3? And then after that, it was like completely, wasn't even something that I even looked at or had any effect on me going forward. Now, the big thing that improved this was just the length of it, to where Batman versus Superman, that should have been 3 movies. They didn't build characters out the way that I think that they should have, and then they kind of just means they had to cram so much stuff into like a short theatrical version, which is why the director's cut was better. And that's kind of like the same thing with Justice League. They didn't really have any building of Flash or Cyborg and really Aquaman. There was just no building of these characters, and you're just really ramming all. I personally like the solo movies more than I like the team up movies, myself. So just having all these characters rammed down your throat. I mean, I know the characters and everything, but still, I still want to see them built up in this universe. I mean, and I think fans who aren't so familiar with them want the same thing, which is what really hurt the movie. Now, there is a lot of scenes, like there's a couple specific scenes that are pretty impactful to the movie as far as Flash and Cyborg. I want to say Cyborg probably has the most character building, more character building than anyone else. And Flash is probably second. Now Aquaman I think has a couple added scenes, but like they do a lot with Cyborg and they do a lot with Flash that I think make the movie so much better. Another thing that you'll see in this movie is that almost every scene in general, there's some clips like that they used from the original Justice League, but they may use them in a different context, or they may use them differently, just differently than how they used them in the original Justice League, to where like the movie is it's literally so much different than I expected it to be. I just was not expecting this big of a change. So it ends up being, it's over 4 hours, and I think it's split into 7 parts and then an epilogue. And the 7 parts are just like, it's not episodes. It's just like you're watching it, and it goes part 1. It goes black screen part 2. So there's no like stopping and starting. It's just, I don't know why it's split up that way. I guess it's just like chapters. But the pacing of this movie, I will tell you, it's 4 hours long. I watched it with my kid. My kids don't even like superheroes, like movies, to be honest with you. And I watched the first 2 hours with them, and then it was their bedtime, so I put them to bed, and they were just like, Daddy, we want to watch the rest of this tomorrow. They were like really excited about it. They loved it. And one of my sons asked me, can you get is this on Spotify? Is this music on Spotify? Because that's another thing, to where the soundtrack, the score for this is completely different, and it makes a huge difference in the movie, is the score. So, and he's never asked me that before. He's 8, and I think the only other time he's ever asked that is for the Post Malone from the Spider-Man, the animated Spider-Man movie. So he really liked that soundtrack. And this is the first time he's not even really into music, and I was surprised that he had asked this, and I was like, wow. And I'm like, so like, meaning that like someone who's not even like attuned to music and like soundtracks and stuff like that, it even impacts someone who doesn't really even pay close attention to that. So that had a huge effect on it. The score totally changes just the mood and just how the movie is in general. But the pacing is also, it's a 4-hour movie. Like I said, I played 2 hours with my kids, put them to bed, and then I went and I finished the rest of the movie by myself because I couldn't not finish it last night. And it, like, there's never like a down, like there's never a down moment. It's 4 hours, and the pacing is like, could not be better, to be honest. There's really no downtime to where it's like you get bored. It's paced like as good as anything that I think I've ever seen before. It is that good. It's impressive. So the score is great. The pacing is great. Steppenwolf is another thing to where I think a lot of people got confused, where in Batman vs. Superman you see Steppenwolf, and then they bring in Steppenwolf in Justice League, and he looks completely different, and he's really just totally like, yeah, he looks so different. The Steppenwolf here is, closer to the Steppenwolf that you saw at the end of Batman vs. Superman, so it's totally different. And I feel like some of his lines are quite different, so like there is definitely different, you see more of Steppenwolf in this, and his lines are different. So he has some of the same lines, but they changed up his lines in dialogue a lot, which was pretty cool to see. You get Darkseid, so you definitely see some Darkseid in this, which was what was initially intended, to where I guess when the Justice League came out, I think that they kind of had tried to make it so where it was only going to be a part 1, not a part 1 and part 2, and they kind of capped it off to where they just did not have Darkseid involved at all, period. And he plays a pretty big role in the actual plot and story of this. I mean, you don't see too much of him, but he is definitely integrated into the plot and in there pretty decently. So he is, that was really awesome to see. But yeah, the big thing is just that the character building, with Flash, with Cyborg. Aquaman has a little bit better character building as well. Every scene, like I said, is like a lot of the lines are different. Like they use so much different clips that they had to make a lot of this movie, and it is like watching a completely different movie. So if you're thinking you're going to go in and it's like, oh, I didn't like the first one, I'm not going to like this, what else could they have done? You will be surprised. I promise you, you will be surprised, pleasantly surprised. And even if you're not a huge DC fan, I think that you'll like it. I think it's that good. I think it's that good of a movie to where even if you're not a huge DC fan, you're maybe just be a casual fan, I think that you'll still like it as well. Another thing that I really made a big difference is the comedy. So now, if you liked the Justice League, the theatrical version, and you liked a lot of like the kind of like Josh Whedon stuff that they threw in to make it feel more like Marvel, they took so whether you liked that or did not like it, like almost all those lines are gone. So like the whole comedy like aspect to it that makes it feel like it's like a Marvel movie, they really pretty much just wiped the slate with that. So that is gone. So like I said, I mean, a lot of those scenes are gone. They've put them in with different stuff. There's just a lot more extra content that I was not anticipating seeing. So if you were going in wanting to see, the Snyder Justice League, and then you got the Whedon one, and you were really disappointed, I think that you will be pleasantly surprised with this. But I mean, the characters like Wonder Woman is fantastic. I think everyone does a really good job. I mean, I like all the characters that they have, like all the casting that they've done for just like the DC universe. I think is really well done, and you get to see the characters more. You get more character building, and I think that it's kind of unfortunate that things happen in the way that they did. But in the end, I don't think that we ever would have gotten this version theatrically. We would have never gotten a 4-hour theatrical version. And I think it's just, I guess it works out the way that it did. And in the end, it kind of worked out better because we got to see kind of that full 4 hours. And I think this is a much better version than we ever would have seen in the theaters. I definitely think that it's worth getting HBO Max just to see if you can get a trial or whatever. It's that, like, it is good. It is really, really good and definitely worth your time. Now, it does leave you on a bit of a cliffhanger. That is another thing. And I think that I have no idea if they'll ever be able to add on to this and do a Justice League Part 2. I have no idea from what I understand, Warner Brothers and Snyder are not really on the same page. And Snyder, I think, which I haven't looked too much into it, but I know a lot of people were just, a fan base is upset with Snyder for things that he said. So I have no idea if like a Justice League Part 2 would even be possible. All I know is this one is fantastic. It's definitely worth your time. It's definitely worth getting HBO Max for at least a month or a free trial just to see. And I hope that they do something to add on to this. I'm not counting on it, but I would just love to see Warner Brothers and possibly HBO Max partner to try to make a Justice League Part 2 or just move this, going forward. But that's my thoughts on it. I think it's definitely something to check out, and I was pleasantly surprised. I know I went on for a while, but I kind of wanted to give you more full context because I don't talk too much about movies on here in general, but this is something that I thought was really needed to be talked about, especially since how much I care about DC and care about the characters myself. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you've seen the Snyder Cut, how you feel. Were you impressed? Were you like me? Did you think that were you like, wow, they actually redid, like, that is so much different than I was expecting them to do? Because it's fascinating how different of a movie it is. But I think I'm sure I'm leaving some stuff out. Regardless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Later.